You're looking at what we at the Boxing Channel think is the biggest boxing glove in the world. And guess what? We've procured it for our use. And what better thing to use as a prop than this giant boxing glove when we talk about what is a very big matchup in the UK with Ricky Hatton coming back for the first time in the ring since May of 2009 when he suffered that brutal knockout loss to Manny Pacquiao. He will make a return in front of 20,000 fans at the MEN Arena in his hometown of Manchester against Vyacheslav Senchenko. Now, Hatton has bit off a lot coming back in this fight after several years off because he's taking on a former welterweight champion in Senchenko who only has one loss on his record, that his last fight against Paulie Malignaggi. And those fans at the MEN and all the folks watching throughout England hope that it will be a triumphant return for Hatton. The man that Hatton chose for his comeback fight after this long layoff is no cupcake. Senchenko is 32-1, and this 35-year-old was a welterweight champion. Lost that title, as I mentioned, to Paulie Malignaggi in his very last fight in April. That in his home area of Ukraine. It was a big upset for Malignaggi to beat him, but Senchenko still is an excellent fighter at age 35, and he has a style that could be vexing for Ricky Hatton. As for Hatton, after he lost in that brutal fashion against Manny Pacquiao, only his second loss of his career, and ironically, those two losses have come to Pacquiao and Floyd Mayweather. After he lost that match, Hatton left the sport and sunk into a serious depression. He had drug issues, even thought about attempting suicide at a certain point, was estranged from family members, and it was a very difficult time for a young man who was the toast of England. And so this former junior welterweight and welterweight champion looked like he would leave the sport forever. And the question is, could he get his life back together? He did that with the help of his longtime girlfriend and the birth of their daughter, who is now 13 months old. Hatton got his life back together, got himself back in shape, and said, I want to give it one more go to see if I can at least retire without the sting of that defeat to Manny Pacquiao. And now he takes on Senchenko to see if he can get himself back into the title mix. With all that, we now look at the keys to victory. For Hatton, he's an aggressive fighter, but he needs to jab his way in, not just bull rush his opponent. And head movement is very important. His defensive issues have been chronicled many times, and when he does move his head coming in, and he's much better defensive fighter. And the body work, most important. Senchenko is vulnerable to that. Some question his ability to deal with a great body puncher, and Hatton certainly is that. For Senchenko, as he fights in the Lion's Den in Manchester, England, he's got to fight at distance. You don't want Hatton fighting off your chest. If you can keep Hatton at long range, he can do well in this fight. And double the jab. One jab's not enough. You have to use a couple at a time to upset Hatton's rhythm. And finally, the right hand. Senchenko has a good right hand, and if he gives himself the room to fire it, he can do some damage against Ricky Hatton. So a very intriguing fight at the MEN Arena in Manchester, where Ricky Hatton comes back to the ring. He hopes to reclaim some of his former glory. He says he's already a winner because he has reclaimed his life, both emotionally and physically. He is back in top form, and he says that's the real victory, but he certainly would like to beat Senchenko and put himself in a position to perhaps challenge once again for a world title at age 34, and that challenge could be right after this fight because Paulie Malignaggi, who just beat Senchenko for that title, will be in attendance, and many believe that there is at least the structure of a deal in place for Hatton to fight Paulie Malignaggi for his title if Hatton can get past Senchenko. But that's a big if. Senchenko, as we mentioned, a former champion, a very good fighter. Whatever the case, it's a great stylistic matchup between Hatton and Senchenko. Now, I'm going to be fortunate enough to be able to announce this fight on Showtime in the United States, where it'll be shown on Showtime, and it'll begin at 5 p.m. Eastern and Pacific time. I hope you join me for that broadcast.